What you're seeing is President Biden as a serious drag on Democratic candidates nationwide, and it's driven by his approval rating on a range of issues. He is badly underwater on all of the top issues, including the big ones: inflation, gas prices. He has less than 30% approval rating on the issues that we're told by voters are dominating their state of mind. Even on issues like gun violence, abortion rights, issues that he is elevating into the conversation in recent weeks, he is still significantly underwater. The only issue that we see him above water on, 56% approval rating on his handling of COVID-19. The problem for Democrats and Biden is that that happens to be the issue that voters are telling us is the least likely to be animating their vote this fall. And that's also spilling over into an enthusiasm gap that's developing. You see this in our poll with Ipsos. 13-point edge for Republicans in terms of people that say that they are very enthusiastic, very eager to vote this fall. You're seeing independent voters largely sitting out the midterm so far. Now, that enthusiasm gap is a little narrower than it was last time we polled on it 2 months ago. But still, those are the kind of numbers that have Democrats worried about a potential wave election.
All right, guys, so allegedly there is a whole lot of drama and dysfunction in the White House. And this should not be surprising to any of us because this country is dysfunctional, okay? And like any organization, right, when there is dysfunction, you gotta look at who's running the organization to find out the source of the dysfunction, okay? Any company that has a CEO that is not doing his job or is, again, dysfunctional or unorganized or whatever, that is going to trickle down to the rest of the company, okay? And I don't think it's that much different when it comes to running a country. If the guy at the top that is running the country is disorganized, if his staff is not on the same page, if everybody is not in the know about certain things and things that are going on, yeah, it's going to end up with a disaster, okay? And the Biden presidency has been a disaster thus far. And with each and every passing day, we're getting more information about why the Biden presidency is a disaster. And again, it goes back to the dysfunction in the White House, as these guys just don't seem to be on the same page, okay? This is a far cry from what Biden told us what will be happening under his administration, right? He said that the adults are now in charge. And what I found to be fascinating about this is that the mainstream liberal media told us how bad things were in the Trump White House all of his presidency, okay? However, it seems like the country was in great shape, right? That things was going well. We were respected on the world stage. It did not seem like the problems that were going on in the White House were affecting the country all that much. But again, there is direct evidence here that the problems going on in the Biden White House actually are really affecting the country in a negative way. So with that being said, let's read this article that is going to detail the disaster that is the Biden administration and what's going on in the White House. President Joe Biden and his aides have grown increasingly frustrated by their inability to turn the tide against a cascade of challenges threatening to overwhelm the administration. Soaring global inflation, rising fuel prices, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, a Supreme Court poised to take away a constitutional right. You guys can tell from which perspective Politico is coming from here, right? A potentially resurgent pandemic, a Congress too deadlocked to tackle sweeping gun safety legislation, even amid an onslaught of mass shootings. You notice how they don't mention the border crisis, right? You notice how they don't mention the crime crisis. I think that the border crisis and the crime crisis is probably more pertinent than the pandemic, right? What's going on with Roe v. Wade and gun control. So again, this is coming from a liberal perspective here. I just want you guys to understand that as I read here. But the point is still the same. In crisis after crisis, the White House has found itself either limited or helpless in its effort to combat the forces plummeting them. Morale inside 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue is plummeting amid fears that the parallels to Jimmy Carter, another first-term Democrat plagued by soaring prices and a foreign policy morass, will stick. Well, I mean, look, we're not going to spare Jimmy Carter like that. Jimmy Carter is a nice guy, right? A nice guy like Jimmy Carter does not need to be compared to a guy that's not so nice like Joe Biden, okay? We need to stop comparing Joe to Jimmy Carter, even though Jimmy Carter, you know, he had to deal with inflation and some similar issues that Joe Biden is dealing with. I think Biden is objectively worse than Jimmy Carter. Let's not smear Jimmy Carter like that, right? I'm just saying. Quote, it's something that has bedeviled quite a few previous presidents. Lots of things happen on your watch, but it doesn't mean there's a magic wand to fix it, said Robert Gibbs, a press secretary under President Barack Obama. The limits of the presidency are not well grasped. The responsibility of the president is greater than the tools he has to fix it. The West Wing believes there's still time for a course correction. The plan is to put Biden on the road to highlight progress being made, even incrementally, in meeting the series of tests with visits this week to California, where he will preside over a summit of Western Hemisphere allies, as well as New Mexico, to push for his climate agenda. The administration will also set aside its reluctance to work with, quote-unquote, a pariah nation with hopes to spur oil production. And it plans to sharpen its attacks on Republicans, aiming to paint the GOP as out of touch with mainstream America on issues like gun safety and abortion, all while hoping the upcoming January 6th congressional hearings will further color the party as too extremist and dangerous to return to power. So none of those things that was just listed there as a part of Joe Biden's plan is going to work, right? None of those things are going to work because none of those things are going to address inflation. Now, who knows? Maybe he will get Saudi Arabia to pump more oil out of the ground, which probably is the best thing he can do right now in the moment to try to relieve some of the pain at the pump. However, I'm not sure Saudi Arabia is really gonna help this guy out at this point, considering how much junk he was talking about them. And the fact that they just don't like the guy. Allegedly, they're not even picking up his phone calls, right? So I don't necessarily know if that's going to work. I know the January 6th commission thing is not going to work. Nobody cares about that. None of these things are going to work, okay? He needs to actually address real issues like the border. He probably needs to come up with another crime bill. And we need to stop pushing for spending so much money and, really deal with this inflation crisis. But, hey, this is what the plan is. The plan is to put Joe Biden out there and let him talk more, which I think the more that Joe Biden talks, the worse he looks. But hey, I'm not a Democratic strategist. But first, aides need to quell the finger pointing that's been erupted internally and the increasing concern over staff shakeups, according to 5 White House officials and Democrats close to the administration, not authorized to publicly discuss internal conversations. They also increasingly are trying to soothe the greatest source of West Wing frustration coming from behind the resolute desk. The president has expressed exasperation that his poll numbers have sunk below those of Donald Trump, whom Biden routinely refers to in private as, quote, the worst president in history and an existential threat to the nation's democracy. I wonder how that's working out, right? I wonder how name-calling Trump, okay, calling him the worst president in history, which is just objectively not true. I think Biden, right, by far is going to go down as the worst president in history. But hey, Biden apparently is upset that he is losing to the great MAGA king, right? He's upset. He's furious about that. After publication, White House spokesperson Andrew Bates said this depiction of the White House is simply divorced from reality. Far more prone to salty language behind the scenes than popularly known. Biden also recently erupted over being kept out of the loop about the direness of the baby formula shortage that has gripped parts of the country. According to a White House staffer and a Democrat with knowledge of the conversation, he voiced his frustration in a series of phone calls to allies, his complaints triggered by heart-wrenching cable news coverage of young mothers crying in fear that they could not feed their children. Biden didn't want to be painted as slow to act on a problem affecting the working class, with whom he closely identifies. Therefore, when aides convened a meeting with formula company executives, the president, against the advice of staffers, publicly declared it took weeks before details of the shortage had reached him, even though the whistleblower complaint that led to the shutdown of a major production facility was issued months ago. Some aides feared the moment made Biden look out of touch, especially after the CEOs in the very same meeting made clear that warnings of the shortage were known for some time. Yeah, so basically, Biden tried to play we didn't act on this sooner because I didn't know about it. I didn't know that this was actually a problem until April. Now, this problem arose back in February. And back in February, allegedly, industry leaders, okay, the CEOs of these companies that make baby formula were telling their retail partners like Walmart and Target that, hey, we got a crisis, right? That there's going to be a shortage. But apparently, the White House didn't know about it, right? Allegedly. Okay, but I'm pretty sure people did know about it. Okay, and it either did not reach Biden because, again, communication is lacking there, or they just didn't care about it. They spent more time on, January 6th, attacking Republicans. They spend more time on stuff like that rather than actually dealing with the real issues, okay? They spend more time woke virtue signaling than they do on the real issues. So, again, this baby formula crisis was entirely avoidable because we could have invoked the Defense Production Act back in, February, okay? We could have started importing baby formula from other countries back in February, and we wouldn't have this crisis where we currently have mothers looking for baby formula, right? Looking for how they're going to feed their kids. And when asked about this, okay, here is the answer from Biden's affirmative action hire, Miss Jean-Pierre. Take a look.
The president told my colleague Jeremy Diamond on Friday when he asked if the administration should have acted sooner on baby formula shortage, if we'd been better mind readers, I guess we could have. This doesn't seem like a situation that would have required mind reading. As you know, the recalls date back to February. I believe Politico reported months ago that the FDA was first warned about the suspected bacteria issue as early as September. Are there any specific actions that this administration took, meetings, phone calls, briefings in February or any earlier to begin addressing this potential shortage?
I mean, you've heard us talk about this. You've seen my colleagues on your networks talking about what we have done since February.
We're just curious whether there are specific meetings, briefings, phone calls that you could point us to.
I don't have anything specific for you to point to.
Yeah, so that is Biden's affirmative action hire, given the affirmative action answer, okay, to this question, which means she doesn't really actually have an answer, okay? She can't point to any specific meetings that Biden has had about the baby formula crisis. Again, a crisis that was entirely avoidable had the administration been on top of it from the get-go, but apparently they didn't think that this was important. Again, this guy, is the same guy that brands itself as the working class president, but doesn't really seem to care about working class problems all that much. But speaking of affirmative action hires, all of Biden's affirmative action hires seem to be leaving the White House as they are frustrated. Black White House staffers are leaving in mass Blaxit. That's what they call it. They're calling it a Blaxit. So let's read a little bit about this. More than 20 black White House aides have departed the Biden administration since late last year. An exodus some have dubbed Blaxit, according to a new report. While some of the departing staffers have left on good terms to pursue additional career and educational opportunities, others have attributed the turnover to a lack of mentorship and opportunity. Politico reported Tuesday, citing non-black current and former White House officials. Quote, "We're here and we're doing a lot of work, but we're not decision makers and there's no real path forward towards becoming decision makers," one current staffer told the outlet. "There is no real feedback and there is no clear path to any kind of promotions." Quote, "They brought in a ton of black people generally to start without ever establishing an infrastructure to retain them or help them be successful," another current official said. Quote, "If there is no clear infrastructure of how to be successful, you just become as invisible in this space as you would be if you are not in it." Some, quote, "people have not had the best experiences, and a lot of that has to do with the death of black leadership," a former official agreed. "Think about any workplace. Black folks need some person to go to strategize and to be a mentor, and we just don't have as many folks who can mentor us." The first departure of a top black official from the administration came in December when Vice President Kamala Harris's senior advisor and chief spokesperson Simone Sanders left to take a hosting gig with MSNBC. So, yeah, there's some frustration going on here with some black staffers in the White House, okay? They say that the Biden administration is not focusing on certain issues that they deem to be important to black folks. They're also getting paid low salaries, okay? They're working a whole lot, and they lack mentorship, okay? Some of these people allegedly have jobs with the White House that start around $48,000 a year trying to work in Washington, D.C., right? That's like being poor, right? That is like being poor, okay? It really is in a place like D.C. But with that being said, I mean, hey, I don't understand why these people are surprised, because the reason why they were hired and they were brought in the first place is because they're black. It's because of their skin color. because Biden wanted to woke virtue signal, but he didn't really care about their success. None of those people care about their success. That's why you don't have any mentorship. That's why you don't have any plan for growth or career development or anything like that. It's because they never really cared. They were using you for what you were. You were an affirmative action hire that they bought in to say, hey, look at all the black people that we have working for our administration. However, they're not really trying to put you in a position to make any decisions because they don't want you making any decisions. They want you to be a face, and that's it, right? Do some dirty work. Do the work that they trust you with, because they're not going to trust you with any real serious decisions, right? They're not going to put you in any positions of power, and they're going to pay you a low wage for doing it, and you need to be happy about it, right? Because this is what y'all asked for, okay? This is what you asked for, okay? Look at Kamala Harris. She was selected as vice president because of what's between her legs and her skin color. And they're not letting her do anything. Apparently, when she speaks in meetings, Biden tells her to shut up, right? Biden shuts her down. So much so that even the GOP representatives in the meetings were taken aback by how Biden was shutting Kamala down, right? Yeah, I don't know why y'all surprised, man. Have y'all heard Joe Biden talk about black folks, right? If you haven't heard Joe Biden talk about black people, you probably should listen. They'll tell you everything that he thinks. But hey, at least you got representation, though, right? At least you got representation. Again, guys, this administration is falling apart. It is clear that nobody's on the same page. There are communication issues, and that is trickling down to the everyday average American. And it really is a disaster. It really is. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a black conservative perspective. Peace.